This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good morning. Today we'll discuss about security part. Okay, how we can secure our web service. See, if we have the concrete visual of a web service, okay, if any web service, okay, let me open any. I mean, we have SoapUI, right? Yeah, if you take any web service URL, if someone have this endpoint, they can easily access your web service. Correct, there is no restriction. It's not restricted to some people. Okay, it's a public access. It contains public access. I mean, anyone have this endpoint, anyone have the concrete visible URL, they can access your web service. Correct. So I want to set a security on my web service. Okay, we are going to see two different topics today. um, how to secure SOA web service, okay, and number two, how to invoke third party secured web service. We already know how to invoke a web service, right? How to invoke a web service? We need the web service concrete visual. We can create the reference component. By using the reference component, we will configure the invoke activity. Correct, that is a normal web service. But if the web service is secured, how we need to call the secured web service? These things we will see today. Okay, so the first thing, how to secure our web service. I mean, in SOA program, I want to enable the security. Okay, what it's a very simple configuration, but how to do we will see. So in Oracle SOA suite, by default our WebLogic server comes with OWSM capability. Okay, what is that? OWSM capability. Okay, so this is a security suite. It's a security suite, comes with your WebLogic server. It is not just only for your SOA guys, it is for the entire Fusion suite. I mean, we use this OWSM policies, OWSM uh, Oracle Web Service Manager. It contains bunch of policies, and it is not just limited to SOA. You use this OWSM in SOA, OSB, ADF, BPM, all the Fusion suite products. Okay, so this is, I mean, it's explicitly it is a separate product. We don't do any customizations. We don't do any programming on this OWSM policy. We are going to utilize the OWSM policy in our SOA program. Okay, there are bunch of policies I will show you. Okay, anyway, let me take one example to give you a demo. I want to apply OWSM policy on my billing system. Okay, I want to secure my billing system. Let's see how I will enable the security. It's very simple. First, create the branch. I want to create a branch, feature slash security. Okay. Mm, check out. I just want to create a branch, and now go to your JDeveloper. Okay, so we are ready with the billing system. This is the billing system program. So guys, you can repeat the same steps on any program. I'm showing you billing system as an example. Okay, go to billing system. It's very easy to enable the security part in SOA web service. I already told you our SOA suite comes with OWSM setup. It's a predefined setup. We don't need to do anything. We are going to apply it. That's it. We are going to utilize it. It's very simple configuration. Let me right click on it. And here we have something called um, configure SOA WS policies. Configure SOA WS policies. Because it's an asynchronous web service, we have request and callback. So let's go with request. If it is synchronous web service, you don't see this option. Okay, suppose if you go to card validation system, it's a synchronous web service. You see only request. I mean, you don't have a second option. You don't have the second option. It will take it as the request flow. Of course, the same thing applied on the response flow anyway. But if it is asynchronous web service, you can see request and response, two different options: request and callback. Let's go with request. So in the pop-up, see, this is the OWSM configuration pop-up. Okay, in the pop-up, if you go to security part, here you have a plus icon. You can see all the OWSM policies. So many policies we can see, different security policies. I want to use one specific policy, most used and basic security. It is the basic security. We call it as Oracle WSS username token service policy. Say, let me copy this. I will keep it in a notepad file. Okay, what is the OWSM policy I selected? Username token service policy. That means your web service, when you want to test this web service, you need to supply the username and password. Okay, each policy has a different purpose. Of course, everything is configuration. We don't write any programming here. Just select the policy whichever you want. Done. So I selected the policy. So if anybody want to test my web service, they have to provide username and password. If they don't know the username and password, even though they have the concrete visual, they cannot access our web service. Okay, done. Now billing system is ready. Let's deploy the program. Deploy the program. It's a normal deployment process, nothing complex here. Finish. Wait and see for the deployment. See, it's very simple configuration to enable OWSM policy on any web service. You can enable security on any web service. Okay. So the policy which I selected is the most used policy, most widely used policy, and it is the basic security of your web service. Done. Jar prepared. Waiting for deployment. Okay, deployment finished. So once the deployment finished, we are ready to test the web service. So I already have billing system client project in my SOAP UI. Okay, so this we tested many times, correct? We tested this program many times. I want to test the same web service once again. Let me go to the flow instances. Flow instances tab for the recent instances. So we tested this program many times, right, by using the SOAP UI project. Let me do the same testing again. Let me do the same testing. Okay, go back to SOAP UI. See the same payload I am using to test this. Submit the request, and we'll see what is the response. See what it is saying. 500 internal server error. We got an error. Okay. What it is saying in the XML part. If you go to XML, unknown security. So we have not done anything, right? So if somebody try to access my program with the basic request, that person has the concrete wisdom and he is trying to test my web service, but he don't know the security part. How to test this web service? I mean, what is the user and password we need to provide? He has no clue. Okay. What it is saying? Unknown source, undeclared. What it is? Give me a second. Okay, fine. Let's test this web service with security. Okay, so this is the basic XML, and we try to test it, and it is saying unknown security error. Unknown security error. Okay, and also it is saying undeclared namespace. Not sure what is that means here. Anyway, once go back to the enterprise manager and see the instance. Let's see, is it accepting the request or not? See, your Beeple process failed. Why it is failed? Open it and see. Somebody tried to access this, but this guy restricted the access. See, this guy failed. I mean, it's not allowed, not even to the Beeple. The first component itself stopped the access. And see the correct error here. Here you can see the correct error. What is the error? Invalid security. Invalid security. Okay. So because we enabled the security on the web service and testing the web service without any security details. Clear? Now, what I need to do, I need to test my web service with proper security details. So guys, this is the template. This is the template you need to use in your SOAP header. SOAP header. Okay. So this is the template you have to use. And here you need to use the username and password. Username and password. Okay. So you can provide your WebLogic server username and WebLogic server password. If you use this template, go back and go to the SOAP UI. Under header, you need to place this template. Okay. And now submit your request. If you submit your request, okay. Hold up. Again, error dog. Check the instance. Refresh the screen. Okay, it's not allowed. Let me change the security policy. I think maybe I selected a wrong one. Right click here, security policy. I don't want this security policy. Let me select something else. Select. There is another policy as well, HTTP token service policy. Let me select this one. We'll see how it behaves. Click OK. I changed the policy. Done. Now deploy the code. Finish. Once the deployment completed, we'll test the web service with security and without security both. Okay, so deployment finished. Now go back to your SOAP UI. Go back to SOAP UI and test your web service. Why my web service not accepting request? Okay, let me do one thing. Is there any problem in the web service itself? Let me remove the security. I will test the basic web service program. We'll see is there any problem with the basic program. Original program. I removed the security policy here and I just want to test my actual service. Okay, deployment finished. I just want to test the normal web service. Okay, no security, nothing. Fail. Why? Default. What's wrong? We did not made any changes in the program. I will do one thing. I will undeploy the program and try to redeploy and see. Okay. But meantime, let's get the latest instance. Okay, this is the latest instance. Open it. Error parsing envelope. Most likely due to an invalid SOAP message. Undeclared namespace SOAP. Why? Namespace undeclared. Oh, I got it. Okay, Let me use this qualifier. See here, this part is not declared. That's what the problem. Okay, I got it. Now if I submit the request, what will happen? Still the same problem. SOAP envelope. Today we lost the time. What did it say? SOAP envelope security unexpected close tag. Why? Oh, this one. Wrong XML I'm using. Somehow I edited this. Okay, now let's hit this. Okay, now we got the proper response. Okay, it's not the problem with the security, it's the problem with the XML what I'm using for testing. Format XML, done. Now we got the actual XML. Let's start implementing the security part. Okay. Let me enable the policy. There is no problem in the policy configuration. The problem is in my SOAP UI, the request payload itself corrupted. The namespace is corrupted, so it is making the issue. Let me choose the same old policy, username, token, service policy. Let's see how it behaves. If I deploy this program, okay, now what is our expectation? If you test this web service without security, first it will fail because I'm not providing any security information here. Later I will provide the security information and try to test it. Okay, we'll see that. Let me change the way how I am testing. Go to billing system endpoint. We have the endpoint, right? Let me copy the endpoint. I will go to any browser. Any browser is fine. Let me go to a browser. I want to test my web service by using browser. We can also do that, right? I don't want to save the password. Okay, so this is the client. I mean, I'm using browser as the client to test my web service. You can provide your raw message here. You can provide the message. Let me say, this is my XML. This is my XML. I'm just using a different client, nothing else. There is no big secret. I'm just using a different client. Okay, so the request is ready. Request data is ready. So what you need to do, go to your OWSM tab. Here you can see OWSM tab and select the policy. See guys, I selected, this is the policy I selected in my program. Okay, if you observe the naming convention, WSS username token service policy. Token service policy, because I applied this policy on my service component. But when you are testing this web service by using any client, when I said client, browser is the client, SOAP UI is the client, enterprise manager is the client, order processing system is the client. Okay, order processing system program also a client for billing system. Okay, so we have 4 different clients at this point of time to our billing system: SOAP UI, browser, enterprise manager, and order processing system. So here current use case, I'm using browser as my client. In the browser, go to OWSM tab. Here you can see a policy called username token client policy. It's an opposite side policy, client policy. See what we selected. What is the policy we selected? Username token service policy. The keyword is service, but in the browser, the keyword is client. So when the client is trying to hit a secured web service, the opposite policy it has to use. Web service side, it is a service policy. Client side, it is a client policy. Okay, just select the client policy. Select the client policy. Go to basic settings. Okay, go to basic settings. Here you need to provide your user and password. WebLogic welcome 1. Okay, hit invoke button. So once you hit this, because we provided the proper security, you can observe we got the test result. We got the test result, and it is success. I mean, we don't receive the response anyway because it is asynchronous. If you test a synchronous web service, you will receive the response. Because it is asynchronous, you don't receive the response, but you got the success signal. Success signal. Okay, and you can see here it is showing only request. It is showing only request because it is asynchronous web service. You can see the header part here. You can copy the header part if you want. Okay, you can copy the header part. The same header part you can use in your SOAP UI. No need to copy the entire header part. You can copy the security element. Security element is enough. Just copy the security element. Okay, go to your SOAP UI. You can paste the security. I mean, this is how easily you can construct your SOAP UI payload. First, test your web service in your browser, and then get the header part. I mean, you don't need to by heart this one. You don't need to by heart the syntax of this XML. Okay, so you can see the username. We provided the username here, and I also provided the password. Okay, so let me test from here. I want to test my web service from SOAP UI with proper. Last time what happened, this is in a wrong syntax. The header element is with the wrong qualifier, so I got a problem. Now test the web service. So what we have, 202 accepted. 202 accepted is a success response. Okay, now go and check the instance in your enterprise manager. Wait for the latest instance. Okay, now you can see the latest instance. It is completed successfully without any errors. Okay, done. So suppose if you test the same web service without header, if you test it without header, let me remove this part. Definitely it will fail. See 500 internal error, and if you go back and check for the latest instance, it will show you the security issue. So earlier we tested the billing system without security because at that time there is no OWSM policy enabled. But now OWSM policy enabled, so you cannot test this web service by using. You are not able to test this billing system without security. Done. So any questions as of now? Any questions as of now from anyone? Okay, so this part is clear.
No,
the first section, how to secure SOA web service. How to secure SOA web service, you just need to select the policy. That's it. You don't need to do any big configurations. Now, second part of the security, how to invoke third-party secured web service. Let's assume our OPS program is calling billing system, correct? So for OPS, billing system is a third-party web service. It can be SOA web service, it can be Java web service, it can be .NET web service. Billing system can be any technology program with respect to OPS. With respect to OPS, billing system can be any program. It can be SOA, OSB, Java, .NET, any web service. Okay. So, but when OPS want to call a secured target system, what kind of configuration is required at OPS? That's what we want to see. Okay. So guys, for this couple of things we need to do. First thing, we need to configure CSF key. We need to configure CSF key at server level. Okay, and this is guys, I mean, we can reuse this guy. It's not limited to one program. You can configure a CSF key at server level and it is reusable. You can use the CSF key into multiple programs. It is not restricted only for one program. Okay, and then in OPS program, we use the CSF key in SOA reference component. SOA reference component. Okay, so we need to use the CSF key in SOA reference component. So if you do this, okay, along with OWSM policy. So if you do this, you are able to invoke a third-party secured web service. Any question as of now? We need to do two things. One is CSF key configuration at server level. Configuration at server level, and then use the CSF key in SOA reference component along with OWSM policy. Are we good? Any questions?
This conference will now be recorded.
So now I will show you both the configurations. Okay, the first thing we need to do at server level, that means you can utilize the enterprise manager CSF key configuration. It's very simple. Go to enterprise manager. Okay, and here click on this icon. This is a breadcrumb icon. Just click on this icon. Is it loading? Just let me refresh the browser. Okay, just click on this icon. I'm expecting a slider here. Okay, so once you got the slider, you can see, guys, there is something called your domain, default domain. Okay, click on this default domain. Now you can see a drop down list. In this drop down list, you can see something called security. Under the security, you can go to credentials. You can go to credentials. Just click on this credentials. Done. So here you need to do two things. First, you need to create a map, and then you need to create the key. Two things. Okay, let me write the steps here. What you need to do first, you need to create map, and then create key. So two things you need to configure. Okay, it's very simple. Just click on the create map. So guys, the map name is it's not user defined, it is predefined. Use the exact keyword. Use the exact keyword oracle.wsm.security. Don't change the map name. It is predefined. You just use the same name. Done. So we are ready with a map. This is the map. Under the map, I can create multiple keys, not just one key, multiple keys. Suppose let's assume from my SOA program, I want to call a Java service which is running in a Tomcat server, and a .NET program running in the .NET server, a Python program running in some Python server. Or all three different targets. I have three different targets running on three different servers. So each server will have a username and password. So here I can create three keys under the same map. Okay, each key holds username and password. Each key holds username and password. Okay, so now let me create the key here. So what I want to do, I want to create WebLogic _ CSF _ key. Okay, I'm creating a key. The name of the key is user defined. It is user defined. You can give anything. Let's say Tomcat _ CSF key, .NET _ CSF key. Some username, some key name you can give, and the username I will provide. See, as of now, our OPS is calling billing system. Billing system is also a SOA program. So SOA user and SOA password I am giving here. You got my point? I'm just providing SOA username and SOA password. But suppose if your target service is a Java program, it is running in the Tomcat server, you need to provide Tomcat server username and Tomcat server password. Okay, done. So our CSF key is ready. You need to remember the CSF key name. If you copy this, just copy this and say okay. Say okay, let the key create. Taking time. Okay, anyway, once the key is ready, what we need to do, so this is the key, right? This is the key I created, WebLogic _ CSF _ key. What this key contains? Username of the WebLogic server, password of the WebLogic server. Of course, it's not just restricted to WebLogic. Any username and password you can save in this key under the CSF key section. Okay, and now go to your program. In our case, it is order processing system. Let's go to order processing system. order processing system composite file. See, our order processing system is calling billing system. Now billing system, we enabled the security. Calling plain billing system will not complete the program. It will fail. So what you need to do, you need to enable the security in this billing system. Configure security for request, and you need to select the policy. This is a client application. OPS is a client application. You need to select the client policy. So what is the policy we need to select? Username token client policy. Observe, username token client policy. See this, here it is client policy, here it is service policy. This is applied on a service component. This is applied on a reference component. OPS becomes client, right? Client of billing system. So we need to select the client policy. Then once you select the client policy, edit the policy, just edit the policy. Here you can see there is something called CSF key. You need to provide your CSF key in this checkbox, sorry, in this text field. So provide your CSF key. Is it saved? See, this is our CSF key. Provide the CSF key, and very important here, you need to click enter button in your keyboard. Guys, you need to click enter button in your keyboard once you enter the value. You need to click the enter button. If you don't click enter button, it will not be saved properly. Okay, and then say okay. That means what we are saying, while calling this reference component, use the security policy. That security policy needs a username and password. Username and password, I don't want to keep it in my program. Username and password, I don't want to keep it in my program. I want to keep the username and password at server level. Server level, I configured something called CSF key, and the CSF key I'm using here. What is the benefit? Why we need to do? Why can't we enter the username and password within the program? No, we cannot, because username and password may modified after some time. See, username passwords, at least passwords are not constant regularly. At least 15 days, 45 days, 1 month, 2 months. Passwords will be modified. Okay, so let's assume we are using the CSF key in 50 programs. Okay, the same CSF key you can use in 50 programs, okay, or any number of programs. Let's assume the target system guy said that we are going to modify the password for this user. We are using the same password for so many days, so we want to modify it. So if he modifies the password, what we need to do, we need to update all our 50 programs. All 50 programs we need to modify and redeploy. If you hard code username and password within the program, all the programs will be affected. So for that reason, it's not at all advisable to keep the username and password within program level. So you have to keep it at the server level. Now what happened if the password expired and a new password provided to us? So what we can do, we no need to touch the program. We simply go to Enterprise Manager, select the CSF key, and simply edit the CSF key. That's it. Okay, you got my point, right? It's a runtime. It's a runtime property. It's a runtime property. You can modify this simply by using this edit option. You no need to touch your program. Your program is still using the CSF key, but the CSF key contains username and password, and the password expired and a new password we received. You directly come to Enterprise Manager and modify the CSF key password. Just click on this edit button. You can modify the password. It will be simple, right? Any questions as of now? So for this reason, it is not advisable to keep the username and password within SOA program, and we have to configure this CSF key. Any questions as of now? Any questions from anyone?
No, sir.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how to enable security in a SOA web service, how to invoke a third-party secured web service. Okay, got it, guys? So any third-party secured web service you can invoke, not an issue. Okay, done. So this is about security. A small concept I want to tell you today, other than this security, called JSON. JSON. Okay. So guys, you know what is an XML? You know, right? Everyone? XML. XML is a programming language which can hold data. It can hold data in the form of elements, correct? Similarly, we have a programming language called JSON. It also holds data. Okay, it is an alternative for XML. It gives more performance than XML. It is lightweight comparatively. XML JSON is lightweight. I will show you why it is lightweight. Okay, but the purpose will remain same. Both are same, guys. The purpose of XML, what we do with XML, same thing we can do with JSON, but JSON is lighter than XML. So this JSON mostly used in REST web services. REST web services. Of course, REST web service you can design with XML. REST web service you can design with JSON. Both you can utilize. Okay. SOAP web services, whatever the web services we are designing from all these days, card validation, hello world, billing system, OPS, all are SOAP web services. Okay. SOAP web service has a dependency on XML. Request and response looks like XML. I mean, it's XML only, not looks like. Request and response are XML documents, correct? But when we are talking about REST web service supports XML request, XML response, XML request, JSON response, JSON request, XML response, JSON request, JSON response. Okay, REST web service is most flexible than comparatively SOAP web service, and REST web service can use XML, REST web service can use JSON. Okay, anyway, you have to learn. We already know how to write an XML and valid XML, both a normal XML, I mean XML without namespace, XML with namespace. XML with namespace is nothing but well-formed and valid. Okay, we know how to write an XML end-to-end with all the namespace concept, but we never discussed how to write JSON, correct? So I want to show you how to write JSON. It's very simple. Let's say in XML, we have something called a simple element, correct? In XML, we have something called simple element. Let me say order ID. Okay, give me a second, guys. Sorry, some wrong call. Okay, so this is an order ID. I have one simple element. Okay, and this simple element, you know how to write this simple element in XML. The same thing if you want to write in JSON, this is the syntax you need to follow. Curly brace, open and close, and here, what is this? I just removed the heading, guys. Okay, so here, what you can do, you need to define the element name. What is our element name? Order ID colon, and you can give the value. Okay, so this is the simple element in XML. The same simple element will looks like this in your JSON. Is it clear? It's very simple to write the JSON. What happened? Okay, so any questions? Any questions as of now? Any questions as of now? How to write simple element, XML simple element? I want to write it in JSON. This is JSON format. Okay, suppose if I go to the second example, I have two elements, order ID, let's say order ID and customer ID. Order ID and customer ID. Okay, I have two elements, customer ID. So now how the JSON looks like? JSON looks in this way. Okay, order ID, comma, you need to use comma, and then customer ID. That's it. So simple. So this is XML format and this is JSON format. Okay, and now let me show you the third example. Let's say This is how my XML looks like. Order is a complex element. Order is a complex element, and I have two simple elements. Okay. So this is my XML. This XML I want to convert into JSON. So guys, once you convert this XML into JSON, it looks like this. There is no complex element here. There is no complex element. I mean, I don't say complex element, I will say root element. Of course, complex element is a root element, right? Complex element is a root element. So this is my root element. In JSON, we don't maintain a root element. No need to maintain root element. Are we good? Okay, now let me go to the fourth example. Suppose let's say my XML contains a subcomplex element, something like this. Address contains city, okay, and then state, some state, okay, and then close address, right? So this is my XML format. Now I want to write this XML in JSON format. So root element we no need to maintain in JSON. Okay, there is no root element. So but we have address as a complex element, which is sub element. So for this, what you need to do, you need to write address, okay. Under this you can write curly brace, city and state. City, HYD, comma, state, PS, close the tab. You understand how we are writing? See, this is complex element. You cannot avoid this complex element. You can avoid only the root element. You cannot avoid the internal complex elements. Are we good? Any questions as of now? Okay. Right. Let me go to the next example. Suppose my XML contains an array. That means I'm having address 2 times. Let's assume I'm having 2 address. Okay. This is something Guntur. Okay. AP. I have 2 address elements in my XML. How to write 2 address elements in JSON? So it's an array, right? Address is an array. Now, if it is an array, what we need to do? If it is an array, the array will be represented with box brace, okay, comma, close box brace. Observe this. You need to maintain box brace. Within box brace, you can write this element any number of. See, this is one object. This is another object. Both are same type. They are address type objects. Address type first object. So this is Guntur. This is AP. See how we are writing the syntax for array. Any questions how to write array in JSON? Anyone? No questions?
No, sir. Good.
Okay, it's very simple. How to write a JSON. So JSON is an alternative language for XML. JSON is lighter than XML. So by using JSON, I mean, whatever you do with XML, you have simple element, complex element, and arrays. Everything you can write in your JSON. Okay. So guys, there is a tool, online tool. What you can do, XML to JSON converter. XML to JSON converter. You have many online tools. Let me open this free online JSON formatter. Okay, see this is a free formatter. So what I want to do, let me convert. See, whatever we did here, check everything. The first one, copy the XML. Okay, convert XML to JSON. Just convert XML to JSON. You can see the JSON format. Oh, this guy is, where is the element? Order, ORDID. This guy is missing the element itself. Why?
There is
Okay,
no
let
root
me
element.
try this one. That is fine. Root element is not mandatory. Let's try this. I don't think this is an invalid XML. Let me use this one. But it should show us even a single element. It should show us. We'll try another tool as well. There are so many other tools. Okay, fine. Anyway, if you take this example, there is one complex element and two simple elements. Once it is converted into JSON, see this, there is no root element. There is no root element. It is directly showing you. It is directly showing you two simple elements with the values. Okay. Suppose if you go to this XML, provide the XML. Okay. Convert to XML to JSON. So is there anything missing? State. Wrong XML provided. This is state. Okay, done. Let me submit the request. Convert XML to JSON. Now see your JSON converted. Your JSON converted as we discussed. Address is the complex element and which contains city and state. It is an object. Curly brace is an object, guys. Starting a curly brace, close a curly brace will be treated as one object. Okay. See the same JSON we got. Same JSON. This is the JSON we prepared in the notepad file. The same JSON we got even in the document. Sorry, the converter, XML to JSON converter. Now let's convert the array. Okay, convert XML to JSON. State. I'm providing wrong XML, some typo mistake. Okay, now convert this into JSON. See, you got the JSON. Address is an array element. For that, we are using the box brace. Within the box brace, this is the first object. This is the second object. Are we good? This is what we discussed in this notepad file. Okay, you can use so many online tools are there. So many online tools. Mostly people will use this one. Most widely used tool. But of course, you have so many other XML JSON converters. Anyway, if you know how to write this, no need to depend on the converters. Okay, you don't need to depend on the converters. Once you understand the basic concept, how to construct the JSON. Okay, it's very simple. Any questions? Let's see what will happen if you have an attribute in your XML. Let's say I have an attribute in my XML. Pin code is equal to 123. Okay, if you convert this into JSON, okay, observe the pin code attribute comes like this, but we never use this concept in JSON. Technically this is possible, but we never use JSON with this attribute, with an attribute concept. Okay, but I want to show you XML contains attribute. The same thing can be handled in JSON as well, but I never see in real time work where we use this attribute concept. Okay, this never used. So that's it, guys. That's it about how to use or how to write a JSON. So if you have any questions, let me know. I will stop the recording.